Hotline Miami is a household name, standing as a father figure to the top-down shooters that came after. Its bursts of violence, exciting music, and high difficulty are all well known. And yet, like many classics before it, it's not often that you find people who still actively play it. To many, there's only so much a single-player narrative experience like it can offer. It does have its fair share of dedicated players, but many have understandably moved on. Hotline 2 did change things with its level editor, and that editor has spawned a lot of content. A lot of it is not great, mind you, but there is much to appreciate. But as its creators have progressed and improved in quality, interest has inversely subsided. The workshop's heyday is seemingly over. Its most popular quality campaigns concluded years ago. Even as its most well-sprited and designed levels are still in the works. And even though there are more community tools than there have ever been, the truth is that most people will play a few levels and never touch anything else again. The Hotline games have a reputation, and not always a good one. The most popular depiction of Jacket is nothing like he is in-game. Hotline Miami 3 was never going to happen, and it never will. It goes against what the second game stands for. But that's not to say that the game's influence is dying out. When you dive deeper, there are a lot of interesting works out there, from simple workshop levels to brand new games inspired by or building upon its foundations. I don't normally talk about something unless it's some pretentious in-depth analysis, but I couldn't really help myself with 1900 Cult, a project you may have previously known as.
The Miami Horror is a standalone mod for Hotline Miami 1, which combines themes from both the Cthulhu mythos and Hotline Miami. I'm the lead programmer, Danny Judas, and I'm working with a lead spy as well as Broccoli Walkway, Crazy Jaden, and Rob Salmon, who collectively handle level design and art. My wife also helps me quite a bit with character design and promotional materials.
You may have seen 1900 Cult show up on Steam, where it'll be free for anyone who owns Hotline 1. There's a new campaign, enemies, playable characters, but there's also co-op, a brand new level editor, and a full modding toolkit in the works. It's come a long way from its beginnings as a workshop campaign.
Miami Horror is a spiritual successor to Hotline 2. I've taken Hotline 1's engine and reprogrammed nearly everything from scratch to feel as much like Hotline 2 as possible. From there, we've been pushing the envelope with new and refreshed enemy types, unique character playstyles, and thoughtful level design. We've overhauled the combo system, several enemy behaviors, and tons of mechanics to encourage players to be aggressive in a way Hotline has never really done before. It's a very different, faster experience.
One 900 Cult will center around 3 playable characters, each of whom works very differently. The Crusader is mostly based on Beard from Hotline 2. Whatever gun you choose at the start will determine your playstyle. Unlike Beard, the guns all work very differently and are meant to be much more versatile. Each gun has attached special abilities and unique ammo placement throughout the level. He can reload, but ammo is limited. He can also pick up weapons from the ground, although those ones are much less reliable. The journalist is my most anticipated character. She serves as something between Evan Wright and Corey. For the latter, she has a dodge tackle, which lets her close gaps, avoid projectiles, and knock enemies over. And she's designed for players to focus on guns or melee or switch fluidly between both. To allow for this, the journalist can unload guns, similarly to Evan. This extends her combo meter, which grants bonuses as you build it up. And just watching her gameplay is already really exciting. The last character is the most experimental, and that is Andy, who might look a little familiar. His gameplay is entirely stealth. He can't kill enemies and has very limited combat options. His levels are an entirely different form of difficulty, where the challenge comes from avoiding enemy sightlines, shadowing and maneuvering around them, and solving puzzles within the level and its layout. Stealth gameplay isn't going too far down the immersive sim route, and AI is still going to work pretty much in the same way. And so the challenge comes from understanding, predicting, and working around said AI. Andy can also sneak to reduce the enemy's range and angle of vision. I think it's especially notable that stealth isn't meant to be a fully linear puzzle experience. There's a sandbox mentality with its design, meaning it'll be more open-ended rather than following a singular route, much like Hotline Miami's best levels. Each character is intended to have a fairly smooth difficulty curve in their respective levels, with complexities introduced step by step. They play very differently from Hotline 2, so levels are designed not to be too overwhelming in difficulty, especially for Andy's stealth. You might have seen a couple of controversial changes if you followed development, but everything's designed to streamline and make enjoyment of Hotline better. The biggest of these fundamental changes is to gun enemies. For one, they will now slice the pie around a doorway or corner, which prevents the usual bait everyone into one place strategy of the first game. This is a huge change, but the decision isn't made lightly. Baiting has always been somewhat antithetical to the game's intention to its rewarding of recklessness. It's not really clever or dynamic, and it often breaks the intense pace. This mechanic will be introduced slowly and not thrown at players all at once, so they can get used to playing with it, but it's definitely a sink or swim type deal. Similarly, gun enemies will now back off if you try get close to them, which avoids this problem in Hotline 2, but you could stand inside enemies and make them miss every shot. I feel like Hotline 2's skill ceiling wasn't necessarily reached by most players, but it's that aggressive, relentless playstyle that feels like it's going to be centric to 1900's combat. And I think it's important to remember that the game isn't designed purely for new players, nor is it designed for veterans. It's a passion project. It's designed by the developers, fulfilling their own vision of what Hotline Miami should feel like. As such, it may not carry the same feeling and muscle memory as the first two games, but I personally trust them to maintain the same energy and style. There's some more variety too. 1900 has many weapons. Unlike Hotline 1 and 2, blunt and sharp weapons have different properties, with different swinging speeds and maximum enemy hits in a swing. There's also heavy weapons that can knock down and execute tank enemies. There are a lot more features in the works, but I can't say much on them right now because I don't know all of them either. Something that wasn't yet publicly available when the game was first announced was a local split-screen co-op. This mode centers around Babe and Hunk, who are designed specifically to complement each other. Think of them as Ornstein and Smo. Though it was originally planned to be a simple wave survival mode, it's since evolved into its own short campaign. Once again, this is being kept pretty quiet at the moment, but if you want to envision their gameplay, just think Alex and Ash. Something I really like about 1900's art style is how much of a departure it is from the original games. While it does retain elements of Hotline 1 and 2, everything feels notably more detailed and shaded. The use of color and saturation is reminiscent of Hotline 1, but the level of environmental detail feels like a step up from both games, with this lingering darkness around everything that reflects more of a horror inspiration. It is, after all, the 90s, and the technology and style of the game attempts to reflect that, especially in UI such as the enemy database. Part of this is also an intentional move to steer away from the so-called workshop arms race. You see, the Steam Workshop for Hotline 2's level editor has been active for years, and as time has gone on, the standards for level and art quality have significantly improved. 1900 makes it clear that it's beyond the limits of the workshop, ensuring that it feels more like a spiritual successor. This isn't to say that it's degrading workshop content, especially since you may recognize the names behind some of these sprites. Crazy Jaden made levels such as Twitch and Shellshock, as well as the fan game Hotline Berserk. Rob Salmon obviously made the Human Being series and many other projects, and Broccoli Walkaway is best known for Wolf Den, as well as older workshop content with some eye-catching level design. All three are working on sprites and furniture for the game.
As for visuals, MH is set in '96, so the visual style and tone is a bit darker, but more vibrant than Hotline 2. In a way, we're kind of trying to mix the styles of Hotline 1 and 2 together, but with our own visual flair to cut a unique, horror-themed niche.
To add further to that are features that are much harder or fully impossible to achieve in the level editor, like improved sound design, dynamic lighting, special effects on items, random skin tones on enemies, and more that enhances the Hotline look and feel without breaking away too far. There's working snowfall and footprints from blood pools or water. Rain can increase in strength over time and leave puddles. I really like how the art style still retains much of the originals. The game makes itself distinct but never overshadows its inspirations. You can see traces of Hotline Miami in every sprite, and that's very appreciated. 1900 Cult is built on the Wrong Developer Toolkit, which is a port of Hotline 1's code onto GameMaker Studio. It's currently in the works, and it's meant to be an accessible modding platform for the community to use freely. Alongside this is the Wrong Editor, which is an in-engine level editor, kind of like the Hotline 2 one. This is tied to developer tools, but it's intended to be very user-friendly and a much more intuitive tool for level design than the GameMaker Room editor. Here's a couple of interesting features. For one, you can select and move sections of the level with a copy-paste feature in the works. You can zoom in and out of levels instead of being restricted to an accurate pixel count. There's a full campaign editor complete with cutscenes, branching dialogue options, and triggers, similarly to Hotline 2's editor with far more complexity. If you've got a sprite you want to port in, the editor has an in-engine GUI that lets you quickly turn it into a sprite sheet. Enemy AI can be assigned to fight each other, and new encounters can happen after a level quote-unquote ends. It's unlikely for either of these to launch alongside the main campaign once it's out, but post-launch support is kept in mind. Every campaign level, including the co-op ones, are made in the Wrong editor, meaning that unlike Hotline 2, there are no limitations in the editor compared to the main campaign. That modularity means that the editor updates benefit both the campaign's development and whoever's going to be playing around with it. I had a lot of reasons to make this video, and the main one is simply that I think it deserves more attention. This is, at the end of the day, a project made by a group of people out of love for Hotline Miami and for modding. It's not a full-time project and the team is small, which is why it's been in development for so long. And I think there's something very admirable about that. These guys have actual jobs, lives, and commitments, and yet this project is still going. There are people that I haven't even mentioned here who've done some really great work on it. If you want to keep updated, 1900 Cults does have its Steam page that you can wishlist, but also a project channel in the Workshop Labs Discord server, where you can see updates for both the developer toolkit and the main campaign. There's a link in the description. Thank you very much for watching, and do wishlist 1900 Cult on Steam, because yeah, I think this game needs more attention. Goodbye.